Zaaza had always believed her family's wealth was a blessing. Growing up in the sprawling mansion on the hill, she was surrounded by marble floors, chandeliers, and the quiet assurance that her family's name carried weight in the city. Returning home after years at university, she expected comfort, nostalgia, and perhaps a little boredom. What she did not expect was the whisper of shadows waiting in her grandfather's study. The study had been locked since his death, a place her parents rarely mentioned. One rainy evening, curiosity tugged at her. She slipped inside, brushing dust from the shelf stacked with leather-bound books. The air smelled of old paper and secrets. As she pulled open a drawer, her fingers grazed brittle envelopes tied with a faded ribbon. Inside were letters, angry, pleading, desperate. They spoke of land taken unfairly, of threats made in the dead of night, of a family ruined so another could rise. Zaaza's heart pounded. The letters were signed by a man she vaguely remembered from childhood stories, a neighbor whose farm had mysteriously vanished from the map. Her grandfather's handwriting appeared in the margins, cold and dismissive, as if the suffering of others was a mere inconvenience. She sat back, stunned. Could it be true? Was the mansion she lived in, the wealth she enjoyed, built on stolen ground? The thought made her stomach twist. She wanted to dismiss it as exaggeration, but the evidence was too clear. Later that night, she confronted her mother casually, asking about the neighbor. Her mother's eyes flickered, then hardened. "Some things are better left buried," she said, her voice sharp. "Don't dig into the past, Zaaza. It will only hurt you." Her father was no gentler. When she mentioned the letters, he slammed his glass on the table. "What is your business what that information you are looking for? You have no business with ghosts. Every life is built on sacrifice." But Zaaza couldn't let it go. The injustice gnawed at her. She thought of the lectures she had attended at university, about morality, courage, and the weight of silence. She remembered her professors insisting that truth, no matter how painful, was the only path to freedom. Confused and restless, she turned to David, her childhood friend. He listened quietly as she explained what she had found. His brow furrowed, and he took her hand. "Zaaza, be careful. If you expose this, you'll destroy your family. And maybe us." His words carried both warning and affection, but they left her more conflicted than before. That night, as thunder rolled outside, Zaaza returned to the study. She noticed something she had missed earlier, a small note tucked beneath the letters. It was written in a shaky hand, "You are not the only one who knows." Her breath caught. Someone else was aware of the crime. Someone beyond her family. The silence she had inherited was not just hers to break, it was already cracking. Zaaza closed the drawer, her pulse racing. The mansion no longer felt like home. It felt like a prison built on lies, and she was trapped inside with the truth. Zaaza could not shake the words from the note, "You are not the only one who knows." They echoed in her mind like footsteps in an empty corridor. Every time she passed through the mansion's halls, she felt as though unseen eyes were watching her, waiting for her next move. She began her investigation quietly, careful not to draw attention. The household staff had served the family for decades, and Zaaza suspected they knew more than they let on. One afternoon, she lingered in the kitchen, chatting with the cook, an elderly woman named Mama Ruth. When Zaaza mentioned the neighbor whose land had disappeared, Mama Ruth's hands trembled as she chopped vegetables. "Child," she whispered, "there are things you don't want to know. Your grandfather was a powerful man. He made sure silence was the only choice." Zaaza pressed further, but Mama Ruth shook her head, eyes darting toward the door. "Walls have ears," she muttered. That phrase haunted Zaaza. If the walls carried whispers, then the mansion itself was complicit in the crime. Determined, Zaaza visited the city archives. Dusty records confirmed what the letters had suggested. Her grandfather had manipulated legal documents, forcing the neighbor's family off their land. The property had been absorbed into the estate, the wealth multiplied, while the victims faded into obscurity. When she returned home, her mother confronted her. "Zaaza, I warned you. Stop this nonsense. Do you think you're the first to question our past? Others tried, and they learned the cost. We are respected because we protect our name. Do not throw it away." Her mother's voice was sharp, but beneath it lay fear. Her father was harsher. "You think morality feeds you? You think courage pays the bills? Reputation is survival. Without it, we are nothing." His words struck her like blows, but they only deepened her resolve. The only person she trusted was David. They met in the garden, where the scent of jasmine softened the tension. Zaaza poured out her discoveries, her voice trembling. David listened, his eyes heavy with worry. "Zaaza, if you expose this, you'll destroy everything, your family, your future, even us. I love you, but I can't stand by if you choose ruin." His confession warmed her heart, yet his warning chilled it. Love and loyalty were pulling her in opposite directions. Days later, Zaaza tracked down the descendants of the wrong family. They lived in a crumbling house on the edge of town, their poverty stark against the wealth she had always known. The eldest son, weary and bitter, told her of generations lost to hardship. "Your family's silence was our curse," he said. "We were robbed, and no one spoke for us." Zaaza left shaken. The injustice was not buried in history, it was alive, breathing, demanding recognition. That night, another letter appeared at her door. This one was sharper, threatening, "Stay silent, or you will regret it." Zaaza clutched the paper, her pulse racing. The walls were no longer whispering, they were warning. And she knew the price of silence was rising. Zaaza barely slept. The threatening note lay on her desk, its words burning into her thoughts. "Stay silent, or you will regret it." It was no longer just about uncovering the past, it was about survival in the present. She tried to focus on her studies, on the ordinary rhythm of life, but the mansion seemed to hum with tension. Every glance from her father felt sharper, every silence from her mother heavier. Even Fred, her older brother, seemed to watch her with suspicion. One evening, Fred cornered her in the hallway. His voice was low, dangerous. "I know what you're doing," he said. "Digging into grandfather's past, snooping in the archives. Do you think you're clever? You're not. You're reckless." Zaaza's breath caught. "Fred, don't you care that our wealth was stolen? That people suffered or even died because of us?" Fred's jaw tightened. "I care about protecting us. Do you think anyone will thank you for exposing this? You'll ruin us. You'll ruin me. If you don't stop, I'll tell father everything." His threat hung in the air like a blade. Zaaza felt betrayed. Fred wasn't just indifferent, he was willing to sacrifice her to preserve the family's reputation. The bond of siblings, once strong, now felt poison. She turned to David for comfort, but even he was slipping away. When she told him about Fred's threat, David shook his head. "Zaaza, this is spiraling out of control. You're putting yourself in danger. I can't be part of this." His words cut deeper than Fred's. The boy she had loved since childhood was choosing safety over truth. Alone, Zaaza wrestled with her conscience. Should she stay silent, protect her family, and keep her life intact? Or should she speak out, knowing it might destroy everything? The weight of truth pressed down on her, heavier than any burden she had ever carried. Days later, another letter arrived, this one slipped under her door at night. "The past is not yours to reveal. Silence is survival. The handwriting was different from the first note. Someone else was watching her. Someone determined to keep the secret buried. Zaaza's resolve hardened. If silence was survival, then truth was liberation. She could not live in a mansion built on lies, nor could she accept love that demanded betrayal of her conscience. But courage came at a cost. Her father's temper flared when he sensed her defiance. Her mother wept, begging her to stop. Fred grew colder, his threats sharper. And David walked away, leaving her heart fractured. Zaaza stood at the edge of a choice that would define her life. To speak was to risk everything. To remain silent was to betray herself. As she stared at the letters spread across her desk, she whispered to the empty room, "The truth has already found me. I can't run from it." The walls seemed to listen, their whispers louder now, as if urging her toward the inevitable storm. The mansion's air grew heavier with each passing day, as if the walls themselves were suffocating Zaaza. The letters, the threats, Fred's hostility, David's withdrawal, all of it pressed down on her until she could no longer bear the silence. She knew the time had come to confront the source, her father. She found him in the study one evening, seated in the leather chair that had once belonged to her grandfather. The room smelled of cigar smoke and old secrets. "Father," she began, her voice trembling but firm, "I know the truth. I know how grandfather stole the land. I've seen the letters, the records. Our wealth was built on a crime." Her father's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a weary sigh, he leaned back. "Yes," he admitted. "It's true. But you must understand, Zaaza, survival demanded it. We were not born into privilege. We clawed our way here. Silence was the price we paid, and it bought us everything." Zaaza's heart twisted. Survival? At the cost of another family's destruction? At the cost of justice? Her father's voice hardened. "Justice does not feed you. Reputation does. If you expose this, you will ruin generations. Do you want to see your mother shamed? Your brother destroyed? Do you want to see everything we built crumble?" Her mother entered then, her face pale, her hands trembling. "Zaaza, please," she whispered. "Don't do this. Protect us. Protect yourself. The truth will only bring pain." Fred followed, his expression cold, almost triumphant. "I warned you," he said. "If you keep pushing, you'll regret it. You think courage makes you noble? It makes you foolish. You'll lose everything." Zaaza's chest tightened. Betrayal surrounded her, her father's justification, her mother's fear, Fred's threats. Yet beneath it all, she felt a spark of clarity. Silence was not survival, it was complicity. The next day, she visited the descendants of the wrong family again. Their suffering was undeniable, their bitterness raw. The eldest son looked her in the eye and said, "Your family's silence kept us in chains. If you speak, maybe our children will finally breathe free." Zaaza left with tears in her eyes, but her resolve stronger than ever. She could not betray them. She could not betray herself. That evening, David came to her, desperation in his voice. "Zaaza, don't do this. I love you. If you expose the truth, you'll destroy your family and us. Choose loyalty. Choose me." Her heart ached. Love was pulling her one way, justice the other. But she knew the choice had already been made. Zaaza stood before the mirror that night, staring at her reflection. She saw fear, but she also saw courage. The storm was coming, and she would face it. The silence had broken. The price would be paid. The night of the anniversary gala arrived, glittering with chandeliers and polished smiles. Guests filled the mansion's grand hall, their laughter echoing against marble walls. Zaaza stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart pounding like a drum. Tonight, she would decide whether to remain silent or speak the truth that had consumed her. Her father moved through the room with practiced grace, shaking hands, accepting praise. Her mother hovered nearby, her smile brittle, her eyes darting toward Zaaza with silent pleas. Fred lingered at the bar, his gaze sharp, daring her to act. And David stood apart, his expression torn, silently begging her to choose love over justice. Zaaza's palms were damp as she clutched the folded letters in her hand. The voices of the wrong family echoed in her mind, their suffering etched into her conscience. She thought of Mama Ruth's trembling hands, of the archives, of the threatening notes. Silence had protected her family for decades, but it had destroyed others. Tonight, she would break it. When the master of ceremonies invited her to speak, Zaaza stepped forward. The room hushed, all eyes on her. She felt the weight of generations pressing down, but she lifted her chin. "Our family has gathered tonight to celebrate its legacy," she began, her voice steady. "But legacies are not only built on triumph. They are built on truth. And the truth is this: our wealth was born from a crime." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her father's face drained of color, her mother's hand flew to her mouth, and Fred surged forward, his voice a hiss, "Stop this madness." But Zaaza pressed on. She told them of the stolen land, the forged documents, the silenced victims. She held up the letters, proof of betrayal. The hall erupted in chaos. Guests whispered, some recoiling, others staring in disbelief. Her father staggered, clutching his chest, the weight of shame crushing him. Her mother wept openly, her pleas drowned by the murmurs of scandal. Fred's fury blazed, his threats spilling into the air. And David's eyes filled with sorrow as he turned away, unable to stand beside her choice. Zaaza's voice trembled, but she finished with conviction. "Silence is survival," they told me. "But silence is also betrayal. Tonight, I choose truth. Whatever the cost." The fallout was immediate. Reporters swarmed, reputations shattered, alliances crumbled. The descendants of the wrong family were finally acknowledged, their suffering validated, restitution promised. But Zaaza's own family fractured. Her father retreated into shame, her mother disowned her, Fred vowed revenge, and David walked out of her life. When the hall emptied, Zaaza stood alone. The mansion no longer belonged to her, it was a monument to lies she had torn down. Yet in the silence that followed, she felt something new, freedom. She stepped outside into the night air, the stars sharp above her. She had lost everything she once held dear, but she had kept her courage. And that, she realized, was the true inheritance she would carry forward. The price of silence had been paid. The cost of truth was hers to bear.